chat, and then Lori will help me kind of man some things also. So if you've got anything that comes up for you, please type it in the chat. And as we go along, I may ask for some of you to point something out or add something in the chat as well. And we can kind of have some interaction there. So if you're on Facebook Live, then having some of those comments and things as we go. So self-sabotage, this is my favorite, one of my favorite topics. I have a lot of favorites, but this is the perfect way to end our 4-part series because it's something that we all do. So if you came to this thinking, okay, I need this, I do this to myself, first off, know that you're not alone. There is not one soul out there that does not sabotage themselves in some way, shape, or form. We all do this, and we all do it multiple times throughout our lives, and we all do it multiple times throughout our journey toward any one given goal that we might have. And what's great about this topic is it doesn't matter what your goal is and what you're after. The way that you sabotage and what we're going to talk about tonight will fit into any of those goals. And so my intention for you this evening is to give you one little piece, if nothing else, that you can take away, use tomorrow, that will either give you a slightly different perspective, perhaps an action item that you can apply and use right away, and or some additional tools to add to your tool belt. Because I'll say that sabotage is one of those things that either it's really a positive thing. It's when the transformation actually begins, or it's also when it absolutely ends and your goal just stops. Because it gives us, and it brings to light those things about ourselves that we know that we've done for a long time, but it helps us see where we get stuck and where we get derailed. And once you realize why you're doing that, then you're able to actually decide and take different actions towards something else the next time that it happens. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do is to completely eliminate the idea that it's a bad thing. It's actually your body, your brain, and yourself showing you something that you just need to pay attention to without judgment and in a different way than you have in the past. So you're going to walk away with understanding the 3 reasons why we do it. There's multiple reasons, but I think it's pretty safe to lump them into 3 universal reasons. It's usually 1 or maybe all 3 that show up for you, but usually there's one that kind of like keeps poking its, ugly head for you. And then we're going to talk about different ways that you can actually get out of it. And it's not going to be willpower. So yes, you absolutely can reach your goal by just putting your head down, persevering, white knuckling it, and just having sheer willpower. You absolutely can do that. That's not very fun. Sometimes can be super painful and extremely challenging. And if you want sustainable change, you got to rewire the things that are going on in your mind first in order for that to truly be sustainable. So the first thing that I want you to think about is, what do you get out of not thriving in whatever area it is that your goal might be in? Because there's a reason. We get something out of every single thing that we do that's not toward our goal. So I'll use the goal of losing weight because it's a very popular example, and it's one that a lot of people really sabotage themselves with. There's a reason that you sabotage and do really, really well for a few days or a few weeks, and then something happens and you find yourself binging again, and you find yourself right back to square one. Or maybe you're not trying to lose a large amount of weight and on a really strict diet. Maybe you're just trying to sustain and you've got some balancing that you're working on. You can go through the whole week and do really great, but then the weekend comes and you find that the scale's back up a couple pounds. And so there you are, Monday again, right back where you started the week before. We're getting something out of the times that we don't thrive. And understanding what do we get for not getting what we want is the key to learning how to kind of unlock it. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So there are 3 sabotage scenarios. Let's just get right into it. 3 reasons why. First one is there's always something else that seems more important. Second one is desiring acceptance. And the third one is this idea that I've been really good, I deserve to have a little extra. And so there's usually 2 different directions that sabotage can go. One is either the behavior of your friends, your family, your coworkers, your colleagues, or it's your own inner rebellion. And sometimes when we start out on a goal, there'll be people around us that make comments, and they might rebel against us trying to do something that's slightly different than them. This happens all unconsciously. Or they might tempt us, and then we sabotage because we want to be accepted. And this idea that we won't be accepted really comes down to fear. Or sometimes we feel guilty because others might feel threatened or uncomfortable. For instance, if you're trying to lose weight and you've got a friend who in the past has tried to lose weight with you or has shared the desire to want to lose weight also, and you're making movement toward your goal, that friend and even you can feel threatened that the relationship that you've had before may change. And so that makes us feel guilty for making progress toward our own goals. And so at the end of the day, that reaction comes down to fear. Fear of change that we know we need to make, fear that others who aren't having the courage to take as bold of a step as we are, that they may unconsciously hope that we fail. And the fact that our progress can be uncomfortably challenging to ourselves and to the people that we're around all the time. And so our own rebellion, if it's that and not our friends, comes down to our fear of changing and our fear of truly taking responsibility for our lives, because we probably are taking a step toward valuing ourselves and valuing our relationships in a way that we haven't in the past. And those relationships are forced to shift when you start to dramatically, boldly step forward into a place that is valuing yourself differently than you have in the past. So let's dive into each one of these a little bit more. Feel free to take notes. Something else always seems more important. And so here's how this one works. Feel free to type in the chat. AJ, I can't see you, but I certainly can. Oh, we're seeing that somebody can't hear.
I think they should be able to hear now. Okay. We can't see you because right now you guys are on webinar mode, which is at the end will allow you to talk if you want.
Okay. So feel free to into the chat anything that resonates. I don't know that Zoom lets you do the little thumbs up emoji, but if you want to say yes or no, anything that might resonate. I'm going to use a few different examples. And if you have an example that you want to share, feel free to type that into the chat as well. But here's the most common thing that happens, at least with the clients I work with. Something else always seems more important. This has come up time and time again with the busy working, I'm going to say person, but in most of my clients are women, a busy working woman who is stressed in her job. She's got a goal to either lose weight or incorporate more self-care and learn how to have more work-life balance. It's a lot of what I do. And inevitably, there's also the mom who may be working, may not be working, but the mom is at her wit's end because she's constantly giving up herself to other people and not taking care of herself. So she has the same goal to either have more balance and or is trying to also lose weight. And so something else always seems more important. This is sabotage scenario number 1 in those 2 examples. You've made a commitment. I'm going to go for a walk every day. I'm about ready to get my tennis shoes on. I'm about ready to tie them up. and I get a call from my child and they need me in some way, shape, or form. Or I'm getting ready to put my shoes on and I already had plans for so-and-so to take the kids to soccer practice or to dance or whatever it was, but that fell through and now I have to do that. Or it's I decided that I was going to take 5 things off of my calendar and I just couldn't do it because the meetings that I was going to take off, those were really important meetings and I just couldn't say no to them. Both of those scenarios, self-sabotage. And you could argue that those scenarios are legitimate. Every scenario is legitimate. But at the end of the day, if we are having a commitment to ourselves, we break that commitment because something else we deem as more important, we're also at the same time saying that we aren't as important. Now, am I saying you just don't take your children to their soccer practice because the plans fell through? I'm absolutely not saying that, because those times are going to come up, but we build those into our plan. So we're not going to talk about how do you prevent something else always important quite yet. I just wanted to give you an idea of this is what scenario 1 looks like. Something else is always important. You were going to do X for yourself. Something else came along. You decided that was more important. This is also a little bit where procrastination comes in. You just waited too long. I'm going to go running in the morning. Okay, no, I don't feel like waking up. So I'm going because my sleep is more important right now. Okay, I'm going to run after lunch. After lunch comes and there's a meeting that you need to go to, or, oh, there was a new meeting that came through. So I'm going to go after dinner. And so after dinner comes around and you decide, I'm just too tired, I need to go to bed, something else is more important. And so that thing you're going to do keeps being pushed off. And that is sabotage. Scenario 2, desiring acceptance. This is one, usually number 1, people are like, I can handle that. It makes sense. Definitely can agree with it. Desiring acceptance, sometimes people get resistant to because they don't want to admit that it could potentially be true. And I'm going to give 2 examples. I'm going to use myself. I eat pretty healthy. Some people would say that I eat very odd things. And some people, when they meet me, would never know that I eat odd things because I don't like to be that person that creates conversation around what I'm eating. I don't like to be that person that is going to have somebody else feel like they have to make something else. I want to feel accepted and part of the group. So sometimes when I go someplace, I'll eat things that I don't normally eat because I decide that, okay, I'm going to make this concession. It's okay. But at the end of the day, if my goal truly was to only eat certain things, then I'm sabotaging myself by doing that because I'm desiring to be accepted as part of the group. Actually, I have 3 examples. Another example is related to that. My mother-in-law makes amazing food. She's always been an excellent cook. She's always been an excellent dessert maker. She always has delicious meals. And whenever I go to her house, I never say no. And I partially don't say no because I don't really want, I don't want her to make something different. And I also partially say no because I want to eat her yummy food. We'll get to that in a second. But that's part of it, is desiring to be accepted and being part of that group. I also just finished a 21-day challenge. I went alcohol-free for 21 days, and I had probably 4 or 5, I'll call them social engagements as they can be defined in the state that we're in with social distancing. And everybody else there was drinking, and I wasn't. And so I did not sabotage myself in those circumstances, but I have to tell you, I can see how easy desiring acceptance could have played a part, because immediately everybody asks what you're drinking, and then everybody wants to know why you're not drinking. And then I have to decide, well, what am I going to say? Am I going to go in through the whole story and why I'm doing it and all of this and all of that? How many questions are they going to ask? And what if they're going to tempt me? What if somebody brings out shots? What am I going to do? And so this whole idea of desiring acceptance is a really big one. And I gave you very superficial examples, but this is the area that can get deep into self-sabotage. If you think about the circle that you are engulfed in and who your closest friends and your closest family members are, it's likely that some of the bad behaviors that you're trying to change are behaviors that you do all together with the people that you love the most. And so when you take a step toward valuing yourself in a way that gives you a goal that you're trying to move to, it's really easy to say, I want that goal, but I care about these people. And if I go toward that goal, what's going to happen to this group that I've surrounded myself with? What's going to have to change? How is that relationship going to naturally shift? And am I okay with it? And that's where people start to resist this whole desiring acceptance piece, because that brings a much deeper feeling and much deeper beliefs around who we are, what communities we belong to, and what that means for us as we embark in a different way. I'll also reveal this too. I used to smoke. People can't believe that I used to smoke. I sometimes can't believe that I used to, because it's absolutely the opposite of the life that I live, right? But it was, in younger days. And when I made the decision to stop smoking, I noticed that there was a natural shift in the relationships that I had. And I gradually became the new friends that I had. And I think this sometimes happens when you're younger and you begin to mature, you get different friendships anyways. But there was a smaller circle of friends that still smoked versus newer circles of friends that didn't smoke, because we tend to surround ourselves with those who are like us. And so this whole place of desiring acceptance and having sabotaging what we want is a very, very true thing, and it's a very, very deep thing. And so this is one to really pay attention to and do some mind work around what are the thoughts, what are the beliefs, what are the actions that you have around it. All right, last one. This one is definitely something for me and a lot of us. I've been good. I deserve a little extra. And this happens to me all the time if I decide to go sugar-free. I'm gonna do no sugar. I can do no sugar all week long, and then here comes the weekend. Give me some sugar. I've got some friends that are very into counting their macros, and they will do macro to the T from Monday through Friday. And then come the weekend, I've been good. I deserve a little extra. And so sometimes that sabotage is not sabotage at all. Sometimes that is a very decisive, distinct, and intentional decision that you make, or a rule that you put in place, and it's not sabotage. It's a way to lift and say, I don't want to feel as though I'm deprived, so I'm going to give myself a little bit of cushion, and this is what this cushion looks like. That's not sabotage. When you make a very distinct decision of what you're going to do and you don't feel guilty about it after, that's not sabotage. But when you've been so good and you've decided that you want to do something, and then all of a sudden you find yourself binging on something, that's sometimes can be because I've been so good and I just needed a little bit of a break. And that's your inner rebellion of saying, I really just wanted that cookie, so I just had that cookie. All right, so I'm curious, are we resonating with any of these three? All three? One or two? I know for me, all three have shown up in some form or fashion, depending on what my goal is. And so we're going to talk a little bit about 4 steps that you can do to kind of help beat it. Okay, the first part is to recognize that you're having it and to identify which one of these things is showing up. And so usually in order to go through this whole process, you have to actually sabotage yourself, right? You can think back on a past example, but it really helps in the moment when it actually happens. And the first part, it's not even written on here, is give yourself grace. And remember, okay, I sabotaged, I slipped up, I didn't do what I wanted to do, but I'm telling myself something, right? I'm shedding light in an area of where I know that I tend to slip up, and I'm shedding light on an area that's going to be hard for me. And this is good because it gives me the opportunity and the space to learn what I need to do next time. And so sometimes when people have trouble making the change or reaching the goal they want, sometimes it's because they're not ready. But sometimes it's because they don't have enough tools yet and not enough practice yet to believe and to be strong enough to say, these tools that I have to keep me going toward my goal are playing and having a much more larger value than these old tools that I've been using for half my life or all my life or however long it is. And so our brain is you've got the ego. The ego part of your brain is it's always going to take the least resistance, the path of least resistance. It's always going to try and protect you from feeling uncomfortable. It is always going to take you back to what you know. That's its job. And so knowing that, give yourself some grace. Your body and your brain and yourself is just doing what it's always known to do. So the first thing when this happens is to go back to your goals and identify what's good about you getting what you want in the end, and also what's bad about you getting what you want in the end. And some of you might be saying, well, how in the world can something be bad for me getting what I want? But there sometimes is something bad for getting what I want. I'm going to use a very basic example. Say there is a couple who has been married for many, many years, and they're both coffee drinkers. And they decide and have a ritual that every morning they get up and they enjoy their coffee on their back patio together. And it's a part of their marriage that allows them to be connected and just feels good. And one of them decides 20 years, 25 years into their marriage that they're going to give up caffeine. And it's a really hard thing for them to do. There's the bad thing of whichever spouse wants to give up caffeine and not drink coffee anymore. A bad thing that could happen from them getting what they want is they might lose that ritual that created such comfort and connectedness in their marriage. So whatever your goal is, take some time to think about it. You probably already thought about the reasons why you want your goal and what you're going to get out of it and how that's good. Pause for a moment and think about what could be bad, because the things that could be bad is what your mind subconsciously is thinking about and is afraid of. And those are the things that you want to identify so that you can figure out which tool to use in order to not be afraid of that anymore. Then you go to, what is the positive intention for you holding on to whatever it is you're holding on to, whatever that fear is, or what even is the positive intention of you sabotaging. So if you were trying not to have any alcohol and you went to a party and you did end up having that alcohol, what was the positive intention in that moment for you holding on to that? And then there's a fear, there's an identification of something that you're afraid of that will be attached to that positive intention that you're holding on to. If I use the coffee example, that connection of, I don't want to lose that connection with my spouse if I stop drinking my coffee in the morning, then you need to connect with that part of you that's afraid to change. So that part of me that is afraid to lose what I might have with my spouse, how do I then attack it? And that's where the self-talk that Lori had mentioned kind of comes in. So you have to be able to kind of talk to yourself, even if you do it out loud, or maybe it's just thoughts in your brain, right? Whatever it looks like for you, but contemplating the fact that there was that part of you that sabotaged and didn't have the action you wanted had a positive intention. That's why we need to give ourselves grace when it comes to sabotage. But instead, what we do is we beat ourselves up over and over and over and over and over again. We give ourselves so much guilt. That's not going to help us get any closer to our goals. But instead, be thinking about, okay, I did X, and that had a positive intention. And you thank that part of you that you did the best that you could with the tools that you knew how. There's other tools now that I'm going to use instead. And it's that cycle and that practice that you do over and over again. It's not going to happen one time. You're not going to sabotage yourself tomorrow, have this self-talk, and then never sabotage yourself again. It's not about being perfect. It's about knowing how to come back each time that you did something that wasn't getting you closer to your goal. It's about practice and coming back each time to practice again and to try and do something slightly differently than you did before, because each time you do those tools that are helping get you progress, those are going to start to be more comfortable and become part of your practice. And then the last one is nourish yourself. And I'm going to get into this very specifically. You may want to write these down, because what's super important is that the whole part about beating ourselves up, we may not think that it creates the damage that it does, but at the end of the day, it really wreaks havoc in our ability to really progress forward, because you're telling yourself things that are in direct opposite to the direction that you want to go. So it literally is the same as taking 5 steps forward and 4 steps back, 5 steps forward and 7 steps back. So learning how to replace what your self-talk is, but also the things that you're doing to help create the environment that helps you make the best decisions, always sets you up for success. And I actually did not create these myself. I heard them on a talk by Jolene Park. And so if you're wanting to know more about these, then look her up. But they are absolutely fantastic, and they work with anything. So when you think about nourishing you, this isn't necessarily about self-care. This isn't necessarily about doing one particular thing or a bunch of things to just keep yourself busy. It's more about setting yourself up for success and thinking about your environment, particularly when you have a very specific goal that you want to go after, and you want to ensure that you're armed with the best tools possible in order to make the decision that you know you want to make each and every time. So something that I work a lot on with my clients when we're setting action plans is I talk about this thing called inevitable success. What needs to be in place in order for you to have inevitable success? And it's a process of going through, maybe it's something you're going to do over the next week. What does your week look like? What you think of all the possible things that could come your way, so that if your self-sabotage is scenario 1, where something else is more important, that you're really thinking about making sure that nothing else can come side swipe in and say, you can't say that that's more important than whatever this thing is that you decided to do. And so this nourish is a little bit about how you set yourself up for inevitable success. Because if you're feeling high and you're feeling like your vibe is great, you're gonna make better decisions than if you're not, okay? So the first one is notice nature. You don't have to be somebody that likes being outside in order to do this. It can be simply stopping and noticing your surroundings. It can be actually being outside. It can be observing the sunlight. It can be giving yourself 5 minutes. It can be just pausing out in nature. It's nourishing to your body. Observing your breath. Everyone just take a long, deep inhale. and exhale. Do it one more time. Long inhale and exhale. Taking a breath actually has brain power, gives you brain power, and brings your body down to a state where it's no longer trying to fight or flight. And it is the simplest and easiest thing that you can do. And you can do it silently, and you can do it when nobody else knows you're doing it. It doesn't matter where you're at. It is something that if you just simply notice your breath, and you can say, I'm so not into any of that, but you give yourself like once in your day where you just stop and notice, even if it's for 30 seconds, it's going to give you a little bit of a different sense of bring you back down to calm and bring you back down to relaxation. Uniting with others, having a community, not isolating yourself, sharing your successes, sharing your struggles, talking with somebody that is important to you, even if it's not about your goal, but just having some type of community helps us feel as though we're not alone. Replenishing with food. So if you are hangry, for sure, you're not likely to be making any sound decisions. Whether it's about the food you're going to put in your body, whether it's about something that you said you were going to go do, whether it was about making that plan that you said was going to help you get toward your goal, we're not likely to do much if we're in a state of being hangry. So replenishing yourself and not allowing yourself to get to that point of huge hunger is really important. And I say that especially for those of you who may be trying to lose weight. There is absolutely nothing gained from depriving yourself to the point where you're totally hungry all the time. That gets you nowhere, except for in this place of, I need to white knuckle it, and I need to keep myself so uncomfortable, but I can do it. There's zero value in getting that. So if there is, if you're so hungry to the point that you're not able to completely do what you want to do, it's not the right diet for you. Initiate movement, exercise, whether we like it or not. You don't have to go balls to the wall and do every single thing that's super intense. You can go for just a very nice leisure walk. But initiating some type of movement in your body, that does get your endorphins going, and those endorphins work wonders for your ability to be able to continue to keep making those good decisions. Sit in stillness. We're hearing more and more about mindfulness and meditation. I don't know that you even have to meditate to sit in stillness. Just being able to pause for a hot second in your day can do wonders. And then harness your creativity. That is doing things, Jolene says, doing things that end in ing, except for the ones that you know are not good for you, like drinking, binging on food, smoking, all of those things. But fishing, skating, rollerblading, skateboarding, biking, boating, any of those things that are drawing, something that's allowing your creative self, doesn't even have to be the creative part of your mind, but just being creative with your day outside of the mundane day-to-day activities. So you might say, all right, I don't know, that's a lot. I'm not doing any of these 7 right now. And I'm not sure that I can really commit to doing all 7 of these right now. Pick one that seems to resonate the most with you, and just let yourself focus on that for a week and see what it does for you. Maybe then pick another one. And so what you might start to notice is that there are some things that you do and you're like, wow, I really like this, and I never noticed that before. Or you know something about yourself and this is reminding you, man, yes, I really do like taking those walks, and I have not been very good about taking my walks these days. I'm going to really try and bring that back. So you either discover something new or you come back to something that you know does nourish you. And the more you do that, the more it's going to keep you in a space of being able to really concentrate on what it is your goal is and what kind of person you need to be in order to keep yourself in that space to keep moving toward your goals. All right. So what now? It's great to have information, but now what is it that you want to do with it? What needs to be in place for you? So we talked about a few different things. We talked about the 3 different reasons why we sabotage. And when you think about, all right, what's my goal? What needs to be in place for me? Maybe it is awareness of which one is showing up when you do sabotage, or maybe it is looking at one of these that you know is recurring in your life, and you decide one aspect of desiring acceptance that you're going to work on as an example. And if you have this fear of going along with what would the others say, maybe the one thing that you're going to practice is saying no in a way that works for you. That is not by just, saying no, but exploring what are all the ways that I could say, no, I'm not going to do this in certain settings so that I could stay closer to my goal. Sometimes your action of what needs to be in place is that small and you're not ready to actually act. I'm just going to practice, or I'm just going to write down different ways that I could do it. So awareness is one, thinking of small things, what else needs to be in place. And then we also talked about what to do when you go back to your goals and think about the 4 different steps of stopping sabotage. What needs to be in place? Do you know the good and bad things that might come from you getting what you want? Do you know what part of you is afraid to change? Maybe that's what needs to be in place, is identifying what is the fear that's coming up for me that I don't really want to face. And if you recognize what that is, maybe you're also recognizing, I'm really not ready to face that. And that's an awareness you didn't have yesterday. What are you going to do with that? And maybe you decide, okay, this is the time for me to really face that fear. How then do I go about doing that? What is going to be in place for me to help me do that? And then the nourish yourself, what needs to be in place to help keep you in a space that allows you to continue moving forward, even if that forward is a small turtle step and not a bunny hop. What would following through do? So once you decide what needs to be in place, really think about, if you were to totally follow through with just one little piece, what would that do? And then the last one I'd like you to think about is, who else benefits if you follow through? So a lot of times in self-sabotage, or all times in self-sabotage, we are having some kind of fear of change that we don't want to have, either for ourselves or because we're fearing a lack of acceptance from other people. And so if we flip that and we now say, if I hold up my end of the bargain with myself, who else benefits when I follow through? And can you stay concentrated on that? And can you give yourself kind of an anchor to help remind you of that as you move throughout your week, your month, or however long you decide you're going to put something in place for? So I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to open it up for questions. I tried to give us a little extra time today so that we can talk through anything that might be an issue for you, or any nuggets of wisdom that you want to share as well. Because the whole idea is, the more tools we have in our toolbox, the more we can say, all right, old tool, thanks for serving me for so long. I'm now going to let you go because I don't need you anymore, because I've now got all of these other tools that I'm going to practice and use in a different way. So a lot of you have a wisdom yourself to share, and or any questions that you might have.
Right. I just opened it up for everyone to be able to ask questions. So if you don't want to speak, you can just mute yourself. And if you have background, I might mute you for you. um, thanks, Kristen. That was really great. I wanted to ask a question about positive intention. Could you maybe go over that for everyone?
Okay. Let me see if I can, like what it is. So you're asking?
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably don't really understand the concept.
So if everything that we do in life has a positive intention for why we're doing it. Think about the parent who yells at their kid who's running out into the street. And they probably yell at them in a voice and in a way that sounds completely different than they normally sound. And that positive intention, there's a positive intention behind them yelling to make sure that their child stays safe. So when we talk about sabotage, there's a positive intention for us not following through. And let me try and think of a very specific example when I haven't followed through on something that I did. So I think I talked on one of these talks about my what do I call it? The loft in my second floor. And it's been a mess for a while. And I keep having that on the to-do list, and I look at that every day, and I don't do it every day. And so if I were to say I'm sabotaging myself by not getting this done, I can also say there's a positive intention for me not getting my loft cleaned out. What is the positive intention for me not cleaning it out? And the positive intention is that I'm really allowing some things that I don't want to kind of sift through quite yet. I'm allowing that to take precedence. So what is the positive intention? The positive intention is for me to stay comfortable, because in that loft are some things that I'd rather just sit there, because if I look through them, then there might be some emotions that come up, and I don't know that I want those emotions to come up. So my positive intention is to keep myself comfortable. Let me think of another one. If I tell myself that I'm going to run in the morning, and I'm going to wake up early to do it, and I set my alarm, and then my alarm goes off, and I hit snooze, and I hit snooze, and then it just gets to be too late, and I'm not going to be able to run. What is my positive intention for not getting up? It's to sleep. My sleep has more value right now, and that's more positive for me than for me to get up. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Can you hear me?
I see one in the chat that talks about during weekends, I plan to wake up early and I get workouts done, but I end up binge watching Netflix and catching up with friends. As a result, I wake up late and feel guilty all day. This is a really great example. So true for so many of us. And so if we go back to that positive intention, right? There is a positive intention. There's something of value in watching Netflix and catching up with friends and staying up late and gathering that causes you to wake up late and then feel guilty. There's something about that watching Netflix and the friends, you're getting something out of that. What is it that you're getting? And what is that positive intention to then be able to identify, okay, I'm going to put some parameters around that. So you can still get that thing, but you're also getting what else you want. Sometimes it is making the decision that says, I'm going to turn it off. I have the same problem. There's only a couple shows. I don't really watch TV, but my son got me into a couple of the Netflix shows, and man, I was like, I almost don't like it, because it's almost better when you're forced to wait and watch every Thursday at 8 p.m. your special show that comes on. Otherwise, you know, you're hours and hours and hours in. But why not let yourself do it for a couple hours and set a time limit? And then you're still getting what you want, but you're also turning it off. And perhaps getting up early doesn't have the value yet. So what is it that you need to do in order to help that value come through a little bit more than it has in the past?
Great answer.
Or you also say, I'm watching Netflix. I'm going to binge watch Netflix, and I'm going to catch up with my friends, and I'm going to be out late. And because of that, I'm not going to get up early tomorrow. I'm going to sleep in. There's that decision too. And then that's not sabotage.
Great. Let's see. There are a couple messages in here. Okay, we got that one. I procrastinate with the workout until I have to rush to work. More important.
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions, comments? None on Facebook. There was somebody who wanted to lose 100 pounds. They only have 20 to go. He had to drop off the call, but I thought that was really great.
Yeah.
That's a big number.
Here's another good one. This one's around mood, and I like it because it's a great example that is in your mind versus sometimes what we're doing. So when I'm in a negative mood, telling myself I don't care about anything. And that is so true. What's interesting is that I find it fascinating that we are absolutely okay with everything that happens to us or in our head or outside of ourselves if it's good. But if it's bad, we kind of don't accept it the same way. So if we wake up and we're in a bad mood, we expect ourselves to understand, why are we in a bad mood? And what do I need to do to get back in a good mood? But at the same time, like, nothing in life is the same every day. Like, everything changes, like everything is temporary. And so there's always good and bad in life. And we seem to kind of accept that when it's happening to other people, but when it happens to us, we want to fight against it. And sometimes we end up perpetuating it and make it worse by the things that we think in our head. And so this negative mood, we're sabotaging and not even allowing ourselves to go into a positive mind frame because we're telling ourselves and perpetuating the same thing we're experiencing. And it kind of goes into the self-coaching that I talked about last time, is that something happens, I have a negative mood. How do I think and feel about that? I think I don't care about anything and I feel negative. And so what do we end up doing? We end up thinking negative and being negative. So we just reinforce that pattern over and over instead of flipping it. So AJ, I think a really great suggestion might be, can you stop yourself? Can you pause and notice when you're feeling that way? And can you decide, okay, which one of these scenarios is it? What am I putting value in? And can I just flip it for that moment? Instead, what am I gonna say that's positive instead of negative to kind of help get out of it?
So we had a hand raised. Daria, hi, did you have a question? No? Okay, good to see everybody on here tonight. All right, any last questions or comments? I did record this, so I will send it out. Sorry about last week's. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. Great talk, Kristen.
Yeah, well, I'll just close with one last thing. I think particularly during this time, sabotage is occurring in so many different forms, different than it may in the past. And so thank you everyone for joining, and hopefully there's one little piece that you might be able to take with you to do something different. But I will also say that the grace that I shared to give yourself is first and foremost. You're not going to get anywhere from letting that guilt perpetuate and letting those thoughts about what you didn't do perpetuate. When you notice yourself doing that, at least, at minimum, just stop and pause and say, well, what did I get out of that? What did I get out of it? Because I did get something out of it. There is something. There was a positive intention, and that's where your value is. Anytime there is whatever is going to have more value is what we will do. And so whenever we're starting to see the value that we get from the negative things we're doing, you can start to retrace what you want to replace it with. So just leaving you with that thought as well. Be kind to yourself. We all do it.
So Kristen, someone's asking if they need additional help. What would you
Sure. You can contact me at, let me type it in the chat.
Okay. And then while you're doing that, I had a book that really helped me after my cancer battle 5 years ago. Michael Singer, he writes a book called The Untethered Soul. Have you read that, Kristen?
My sister has, and she loves it. I have not.
It's a very easy read. It's small, and it's pretty much, you know, a lot of what Kristen's talking about tonight, and how you talk to yourself and all those things. And it gets down into the spiritual part of, you know, your heart, and it's really, really great stuff. So I will put that in my email to everyone. And Kristen, if you have anything that you want to send me tonight that I could send out to them tomorrow, I'm sorry I've been behind on emailing everybody, but I will get it done for you guys for sure for tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
You too.
Bye.